Hello everybody, my name is Vanessa Becerra Bautista. I'm a neurotherapist intern and I'm here to talk about an innovative treatment that focuses on physiology, psychology, and technology. We have wonderful information. Please come and join us on this journey. Mental health is very important because we live within ourselves 365 days. If I was to describe mental health, it would be the comfort that you feel inside, the quality of your thoughts, the quality and self-regulation of your feelings, and your behaviors. Your behaviors tell people and yourself a lot of what's going on within. So it's important that we're able to identify our own mental health and our own mental well-being. It's important that we know ourselves. So what is mental health? It is good quality of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that really determine a lot of the outcomes of our life.
Mental health is any condition that creates any disturbance in emotional, physiological, and social well-being. Any disturbances could be how the clients or patients perceive that stress and how they cope with. For instance, for kids with anxiety, they have this overreacting to either small stress, and they have. When I try to explain what is mental health is having a magnifying glass to emotions. So when we put this magnifying glass in front of our eyes and the emotions, everything becomes overwhelming. So any disturbances that we have, emotional, physiological, and psychological, it will affect the equilibrium of emotions. That would be for me in mental health. One of the myths that we have is are impregnated with culture, and in the Latino culture, having a mental health is being a weak mind. You have a very weak mind, and you cannot overcome with these emotions. People call it hysteria. People that are not able to control emotions, and they're overwhelming of these emotions. We behave in a way that we can see clearly that we're not coping with this stress. So one of the myths is that it will be a weak mind. Another myth that we have in a culture, Latino culture, is that anyone who's receiving mental health services because they're crazy. So that's another myth, and that is one of the most important aspects of this myth, because a lot of clients they're not having services because they feel if I go to these mental health services, people are going to think that I'm crazy. Another myth is that people are possessed. If we specific with schizophrenia, a lot of these myths say, "Oh, these people is possessed," and those myths are creating this intricate services for a lot of clients, because these myths, specific with the Latino population, they don't try to get service in mental health because they feel like you can deal with this on your own. Some of the clients say, if I pray, my mental health is going to improve.
I think when it comes to mental health, there's a lot of fear and disinformation. For instance, one of the biggest fears people have is, what will people say about me if I start seeing a therapist? What will people think of me? We do live in a social society where, our surroundings influence us and the things that we do. So sometimes we give in to that fear and decide not to attend to mental health services because the fear of what people might think. Sometimes one of the myths people have is the fear to becoming institutionalized, and that is what prevents them from coming in, which most of the time it doesn't happen. Most of the time people are able to come in and come out within the same day. Usually sessions roughly about 45 minutes to an hour, and then people get to go home. So sometimes people fear that they're going to be locked up. Of course, we are mandated reporters. Of course, we do have to report if somebody has the intent of self-harm or harm to others. But those are very rare of the cases, and in the cases where it does, it's preferable to go to a psychiatric hospital than to inflict harm on yourself or somebody else. So I think that's one of the greatest fears too, is that when people come in, they fear they might not return to their homes, which is a big myth. Although, like I said, once again, sometimes in cases it does happen for the security and safety of the person.
When I was working with clients, patients with psychiatric disorders and the emotional conditions, it really impacted me the way that these clients suffer and the implication they have the whole family. So I decided to continue providing services in the United States on my field, which was mental health. At that time, because my license was not active as a physician, I decided to do something quick and be able to provide services to this population. And because I was working with a neurologist, and I had a lot of information on mental health and the brain, the structure of the brain, I find out that neurofeedback can provide in additional services to these populations and have good outcomes regarding the mental health and impacting in a good positive way when we provide services. So that's one of the reasons I decided to do the neurofeedback training, and I got my certification 2010 approximately, I believe. And since then I've been working on mental health, providing neurofeedback services.
I did specialize in neurofeedback because it was definitely an important methodology and technique that I wanted to include in my repertoire of skills. It was definitely and has been a great passion of mine to inform more about the benefits of neurofeedback and how we can use those in mental health and brain health and peak performance with athletes. So it's really exciting for me to be able to create more awareness of neurofeedback.
I am a physician from Mexico. I graduated in 2005, and I was trying to get my license as a psychiatrist. And for personal reasons, I moved here in the United States, and I continue with my education. Unfortunately, my medical profession was truncated for different personal reasons, and lately I got my master's in clinical social work.
Neurofeedback is a brain training technique that allows us to see if the brain is either overproducing or underproducing certain frequencies. So the brain is both chemical and electrical. Neurofeedback focuses on the electrical portion of the brain. How are the neurons communicating with each other? Communicate with little signals, and the accumulation of those signals we're able to pick up on our electroencephalogram, which allows us to see what brain waves are functioning the way that they're supposed to in certain areas of the brain and what areas are not, and where we can help train so that the brain can be stronger and can work together and communicate better with the different parts of the brain, so that overall the person's well-being is fully and holistically addressed. The history of neurofeedback is complex. We started studying animals, frogs, dogs, cats, and we did this with a galvanometer, which later on led to the encephalogram, which is what we use today. Our first pioneer and the person we attribute the discovery of the human brainwave is Hans Berger. He discovered the alpha brainwave, which we still study till today.
Brain maps is a qualitative electroencephalogram. So brain map helps us to identify areas of the brain that are unbalanced. Some areas will be very high in different areas of the brain, and they will be very low. So we try to find something in the middle with the brain activity works more efficient. So the brain maps can identify different areas of the brain, and through that brain map we can have a more accurate neurofeedback training and help clients to, with scientific data, help them to improve conditions. We're going to start with the lower brainwaves. It's delta and theta, alpha, beta, and high beta. Beta brainwave, we divide beta in three types. Low beta, which corresponds to specific condition for ADHD. We look for that type of low beta, we call SMR. Some books they refer to low beta as SMR. And we have the normal beta and the high beta. So each type of these brain waves correspond with different functions in the brain. We normally, when we sleep, we increase delta, which is we call that the repairing brain wave. It repairs our brain. So depends what your physiological activity you're doing. It helps you to identify different areas of the brain that are working with that type of activity. If you're concentrating, doing a test, you increase your beta activity. So that improves awareness and memory and things like that. All these things that correspond with that type of activity. We use beta and alpha for different type of conditions, for anxiety and depression. When we see discrepancies on those brainwaves we make, when we see a lot of beta or low beta, it corresponds with different conditions. There's also a correlation when we use alpha theta for meditation. When we increase the ratio of those two brainwaves, it helps to have a better meditation process, and it helps us also to reduce anxiety. And when we try to work with those two type of brainwaves.
Neurofeedback incorporates the use of technology, and so with the use of technology, it's so amazing because we're able to visually see what's going on. A lot of our challenges in mental health is that what's going on is invisible to the eye. You know, we can't really see a person's heart from the outside. So a lot of times people either don't believe themselves and how they're feeling, or sometimes they need that extra validation. So what neurofeedback does is it allows the person to visually see through graphs, through images, what is going on inside. And really, that what it helps is, one, to accept what's going on, two, to see. You know, because we get a lot of data, we get a lot of numbers, we do a lot of measurements, and that allows us to be more objective with the information that we present to our clients, and our clients to actually quantify and see how they're getting better through numbers, through data, and through measuring certain variables that we do. So how is it different? It differs a lot, once again, with the use of technology and that visual representation that we give our clients so that they can see how it is that they're progressing, or if there is any kind of regression, so that we can identify it on time. The benefits are amazing. I mean, just the way people feel and function after their treatments, you know. I personally have been using neurofeedback for many, many years on myself, and I can tell you that I am not the same person. Of course, that is my own personal opinion, but how can people improve? They improve their focus, their memory, their mental clarity. They decrease their anxiety levels, their depression. They are able to enhance their brain, because this treatment is not only used in mental health. This treatment has been used by NASA. This treatment has been used by the NFL. This treatment has been used by professional athletes to enhance the performance of their brain. This treatment is amazing, and it can do great things, not only to recover mental and cognitive processes, but also it can improve our functioning. And if we improve our functioning, if we improve our focus, especially as athletes, right? It's super important that athletes are able to focus and they're able to feel confident and they're able to have mental clarity so that their performance can enhance in those very, very stressful moments where, you know, performance is important and they have all these, you know, people watching. They have to be able to self-regulate some of those stressors and be able to improve the way that they're thinking.
Per se, there's not a side effect, is that training is an exercise. One of the things when you do exercise, pain is part of the outcome when you stretch muscles. In neurofeedback, we don't feel any pain. We sometimes we feel a little bit tiredness after the training, but it's because it's an exercise process. So as a side effect, there's not any data that we have right now that create any side effects. Most of the time, because it's a very gradual process of creating new neural pathways, it takes time for clients to start feeling the benefits, but not for long. It doesn't take a long time. So as any side effects, I didn't see any side effects in my whole career, and so far I have not seen any side effects in any of the data that we have on neurofeedback.
The side effects are very few. Sometimes people do report fatigue or feeling tired. Sometimes they'll say, well, I have a little tiny shift that I feel in my head. Sometimes they will get headaches, but those symptoms decrease as they do more training. Just as if a person was to go to a gym, if they exercise, their muscles are going to be a little sore. So when we exercise our brain naturally, we feel some of those side effects. They're very minimal. Neurofeedback is very holistic in nature, which is definitely one of those things that sets it apart from a lot of treatments.
We can do neurofeedback from 3-year-old to 99. Okay, so clients in different stages, they will have different conditions, anxiety in kids, especially now with all these restrictions, COVID and the stress on schools and families, they create a lot of anxiety. So neurofeedback helps them to regulate their brain activity in them and be able to reduce anxiety. However, neurofeedback in combination with conventional therapy, talk therapy, is a powerful tool. Those two approaches helps the clients to improve quite significant when we combine those. Neurofeedback, if we use neurofeedback only, we can create some beautiful benefits in clients and be able to improve their conditions. And the majority of the clients that came from with neurofeedback to train in neurofeedback, they have specific conditions. For neurofeedback can help anxiety, PTSD, ADHD, and also traumatic brain trauma can help regulate the brain activity and be able to improve any emotional condition or physical conditions such as head traumas.
There are various populations that neurofeedback is able to assist, but some of the ones that we have found to be most efficacious are in the populations of ADHD, anxiety disorders, traumatic brain injury, and also in addictions. There's other fields and other variables that are still being studied, and we are still accumulating more research as we start to find out more information about other mental health conditions that it can assist.
We look for specific brain patterns and can correlate with the ADHD. There's a lot of data that help us to identify specific brain activities, the theta brainwaves in comparison with beta brainwaves. We look for the ratio of one another, and when we see a lot of discrepancies in this brain activity, when we see a lot of high theta and very low in relation with beta, it's a good characteristics for ADHD. So when we see these patterns, we can identify areas of the brain and be able to decrease the theta and increase the beta. And by doing that, we're able to help clients with ADHD. And the beauty of this is when we start training on the brain, all these changes that we're able to achieve during the training, they become permanent. So even if we stop neurofeedback, these changes that we made during a period of 3 months, 6 months of training, they will stay permanent. They might have little changes, but never gonna go back to the way it was before. So this is one of the modalities that we have in mental health to help clients with ADHD and having permanent results.
Neurofeedback has been used in a variety of sports, including even from some of our Olympian athletes. So through time, we've been able to note the connection between the body and the brain. Brain is in charge of everything, every single movement, whether it's fine or gross motor movement, it is defined first in our mind, in our brain. And so we figured that if we train the brain of an athlete, they'll be able to improve their performance. This is what we call peak performance training. And we're able to do this to enhance the brain's ability to focus, to memorize certain movements, to pay more close attention to detail. To be able to shoot, we need to be able to focus. And so it allows the athlete to have a better performance also by decreasing the stress that sometimes they feel when all these people are looking at them. There's all this noise, this extra stimulation. They have to be able to regulate all that. Not only that, but it also provides the opportunity that in the case of any traumatic brain injury, that they're able to see if there's any kind of change in their brainwave frequency, if there's any kind of damage. We want to identify that because there's a difference between short-term and long-term damage for people who suffer from traumatic brain injury. These are things that if we don't treat on time, they can have these long-term effects where unfortunately people lose a lot of their abilities, right? Such as speech abilities, cognitive abilities, their memory, things like that. So we want to be able to enhance a cognitive ability with peak performance, but also protect the brain. It is super important for athletes to be able to protect the brain. And when we have contact sports such as football, boxing, UFC, things like that, that sometimes our athletes unfortunately get hit just by the nature of the game, it is so important that they are able to take care of that, what is super important that we can't buy at stores. That is our brain.
The neurofeedback doesn't need to be, you don't need to have any mental health conditions to utilize these services. When we use neurofeedback for sport performance, we increase the speed of how the brain connects. So any reaction will be faster. We also increase self-awareness. Clients that play in different physical activities, sports, they will be performed better. They will be more have better awareness. The speed process of the reaction, it will be faster and be able to have not only achieving the physical aspects of the sport, but also the brain performance when we do it. When we have additions, obviously we have this imbalance. Chemicals imbalance in the brain, the neurotransmitters, the dopamine and other neurotransmitters are feeding to that type of addiction. So when we do neurofeedback, we reduce the activity of different areas of the brain, reducing the cravings, improving resistance on the desire of start either drinking or using any drugs. And by doing that, we reduce and improve the addictions on clients. There's a lot of data that when we work with clients with alcohol dependence, when we start changing those brain activity, the clients feels less cravings, and even if they encounter if they start drinking, they have this unpleasant sensation. So it helps clients to reduce the addictions in that way. One of the things that we see with traumatic brain injury, there's a lot of data that shows that there are different areas of the brain is being affected, especially the cortex area. So we see a lot of delta activity on clients who have traumatic brain injury. By reducing delta activity and improving all the other brain activity, it helps to improve and recover faster if the clients came to the therapy for that type of condition. So by reducing delta and other brain activities as well, modifying any other brain activity, it helps reduce the damage that happens and improve the recovery process.
So recently in Nevada, what we've seen an increase in child abuse. It has increased so dramatically. We've seen more cases of just parental violence. We heard of a case recently where a child was found in the mountains close to Pahrump. Unfortunately the child had lost their life. We've seen an increase in domestic violence. We are one of the states that has some of the highest rates of domestic violence. We are also a state where there's a lot of addictions and they're 24 hours, and so we have a lot of challenges here in Nevada that might be different than other states. And a lot of these things affect the well-being of our community, affect even, how we drive, affect our performance in school. I mean, it's no secret that our academics are very low when compared to other states. It's not a secret that our mental health services are, some of the lowest when compared to other states. And we have to ask ourselves how and what needs are specific to our community so that we're able to target those needs. Unfortunately, this past year, actually, neurofeedback services and biofeedback services were cut off from Medicaid. So a lot of people who were receiving neurofeedback no longer were able to receive it in a time where we need mental health more than ever, in a time where unemployment is so high. Unemployment contributes to a lot of mental health issues. Because our brain needs stimulation. Our brain needs to be engaged. And when we're not engaged, when we're at home all day, we have a lot of time to think about our problems. And depression and anxiety have increased dramatically these past years. And with that, like I said, child abuse, domestic violence, addictions, overdoses have never been so high. And yet here our representatives are cutting down mental health services. It just doesn't seem to make sense. And I understand that there's a lot of issues that still need to be resolved. But priorities. Without mental health, we are definitely going to see more violence.